Hello, dear listeners. Good afternoon. You are welcome to our regular show Behind the Screens with Olusegun, and we are broadcasting live from 97.5 FM Studio, Farza Radio from Nottingham. It's our show Behind the Screens. Domestic abuse, seek help. So today we have something slightly different from our discussion last week, but it still centers around the same show as we want to consider the subject matter coercion or coercive behavior. That's controlling, having a controlling behavior. So we will be considering what this means and how this affects our young adults. And we will also be checking, is it something we want to consider during the early years to begin to include in the curriculum in schools? So these are possible areas we'll be delving in on today's show. Welcome one more time. Pen and paper ready? So much to take on today as we begin to unpack what it means. To do justice again today is my regular guest, Miss Richard Ada. Good morning, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. It's afternoon, sir.
Sorry, it's afternoon. It's actually afternoon. And I greeted good afternoon earlier.
Good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon to all our listeners, our regular followers on this show, and as many as will be joining us for the first time. You're welcome. Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Everyone coming along with us, whether new or regular guests on the show. Sorry, or listeners on the show. So today, I've just brought to the attention of all who are listening to us the subject matter or the word coercion. What does it mean? What does coerciveness? What does it mean, man? And how does this connect to uh, the subject matter we are always discussing on this show, domestic abuse or domestic violence?
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Like we always do, in order to put everything in context, at the beginning of the show, we always just remind ourselves what we mean by domestic abuse or domestic violence. And these two terms, often used interchangeably, obviously one eventually leading to the other. Domestic abuse is an incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading, and violent behaviors, including sexual violence. In the majority of cases, um, from a partner to another partner, people in intimate partner relationships, usually from as early as the age of 16 plus upwards. It could be also be by a family member to another or a carer to the cared for. It is common in the vast majority of cases, commonly experienced by women from men, but we also have, staggering statistics of cases of domestic abuse and domestic violence where the men are the victims and the women are the perpetrators. Like I mentioned earlier on, it includes, not exclusive, of coercive control, psychological or emotional abuse, financial or economic abuse, harassment and stalking, online or digital abuse, and the list goes on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, these are our regular um, reminder, definition of what domestic abuse is whenever we talk of, when we come to this show. So now tell me, what's the link between coercion
Control.
or coercive behavior and domestic abuse or domestic violence? How
Sure.
does one connect the other?
Yeah. Thank you.
Also, tell me about control. Are these two different terminologies?
Actually, thank you very much, sir. The word coercion, you see, it's to coerce is an act of making someone do something against their will. And it's enforcing.
I was just going to say, is there an element of militancy? I was just about to ask. Now you have just mentioned the word enforce.
Yes, and it could, and when we say to coerce, the person, whoever is meting out the coercion, would use any means possible. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Because the goal is to enforce,
To
is to
force the other party to
and
do.
that is the word force. That is very crucial. And
Even
again,
if it's against the will of the other party.
oh sure. When we say to force, and when you say forceful, anything, the word force is against the will of the other person, and and so the word, I mean, coercion, it incorporates controlling, is a controlling behavior. So to control is part of coercion. It is in it. Because when you force, you are making someone do, yes? Am I making sense? So,
Absolutely.
so both controlling and coercive behaviors, you can put one before the other. It's like to you control to coerce. Yes? So
I see.
coercion, it entails more than controlling because it brings in all the forceful agents that to ensure this happens. So both words, when we say controlling or coercive behavior, coercive and controlling behaviors, and if we take our mind back to the definition of domestic abuse that we said, these were the two words at the forefront. Pattern or incidents of controlling and coercive, threatening, degrading, yes. And it just encompasses everything. So these are acts, and when we say act, we're talking of action, yes. So we're not saying that means something is happening. Action, something is happening. Acts designed to make a person, and again, acts. That's why I said, when we talk about the word coercive, coercion, it is to enforce with whatever means possible. So, whatever means possible, it could be even something that the third party does not see. It may not be visible behaviors. It could be it could be so invisible that it's only happening between two parties. So, for example, it could be as um well, call it insignificant as making eye contact with someone. You
Wow.
and one person can make eye contact with another, that and the impact of it could be deadening.
Wow.
So it is how the person feel.
So mere gesticulation
Oh,
could
sure.
be controlling.
Non-verbal communication. It could be a form of coercion. Because what matters is that somebody is sending a message, another one is receiving it.
Receiving it. And yet there could be a third party who may not understand
What is
what
happening
goes
before?
on between these two. Hmm.
So these are acts designed to make a person feel, but you see, the goal is to make a person feel inferior or depend, or for them dependent, by keeping them, so again, so the goal is, making a person feel inferior, making making a person do something that they may not ordinarily wish to do, making them dependent, keeping them apart, separating them, isolating them, because you isolate to abuse.
Absolutely. So there's
Because,
an element of enslavement in it.
can you take that again, sir?
I'm asking, and with this explanation of this definition, there is an element of enslavement, modern day enslavement.
You said it. That's another level of it. Enslavement, psychological enslavement. For example, I gave the example earlier on of one person making eye contact with another person, and the meaning, whatever communication, whatever information is being communicated through the act of, non-verbal. You understand? Nobody has said anything, but there's an impact. An impact has been felt. Well, we're talking in this sense, a negative impact has been received on the other end, and also, and if that a negative impact has been received, so how does that person receive it? What impact does it have on that person? It could be a psychological enslavement. So, am I making sense? It is psychological.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
communication that, even when it's being received, there's a sense of depreciation in that person.
Self devaluing or something.
Their heart sinks. That's the impact. It makes them feel inferior. It makes them feel low. Of course, you know. And again, sir, we're just now, what so far we've just been analyzing the psychological impact of it. How about the physical impact of it? It can include taking.
What are the possible physical impacts?
Oh, sure, there's got a lot. It can involve taking advantage of their money or their other belongings.
As for someone who economically depend on the partner,
Sure.
so such a partner can take advantage by withdrawing benefits, financial benefits from that individual.
It includes physical violence or threats of violence. That is coercion. It's
Physically hitting the other party, slapping, kicking, or whatsoever.
and the person cannot respond. Or sexual assault or abuse or threats. Even making threats, threatening behavior is coercion, because it's like, threatening, even that in itself.
You are not taking any action just because you are threatening.
And the threatening can be non-verbal, it can be verbal, it can be sexual, it can be physical. Yes. It can involve controlling the victim's daily activities and behaviors. For example, controlling their time. Time is something that you cannot see, but controlling their time. It could be that, well, just sit down there, don't get up. Don't get involved in this. What they wear, even what they eat, when they eat and sleep. You see, what we're saying is like taking life, what constitutes life, away from an individual. Because by the time
They literally robbed of their own rights and privileges and their dignity, if possible.
that is it. So it takes us again to the realm of human rights. When you take away sleep, when you take away what somebody eats, when you take away how somebody thinks, when you take away how somebody feels, when you take away where somebody must be, when what is left of the individual then? Take away what makes them valuable as a human being. Yes, we've mentioned financial abuse, such as taking all the victim's money. It can involve, remember earlier on when we talked about definition of domestic abuse, we said it can include digital or online abuse. Yes?
Absolutely.
It can involve controlling the victim using social media and the phone. Yes,
to victimize the other party.
yes. And we see these days, we hear a lot of this,
It
online,
happens.
digital. Some people sending, it can involve, someone, so can you imagine suddenly, I receive an information from on my phone, the information coming from somewhere to say, right now, I'm gonna make those pictures of yours available on
To the
Facebook.
public.
And so anything Facebook, the whole world can see. Even reading that at all, it has sent the mind
It's a
to
shocker.
into shock,
Yeah.
because I mean, some information has been communicated, and it is the meaning of that information, what it means for the recipient of this information. That's what we're talking about. That's the behavior. That's how it controls their feelings. So suddenly, something happens in the individual. Yes? So we're talking about forcing the victim to do something that they don't want to do, they would not ordinarily do. Like I said earlier on, threatening to give out information about the victim's sex life or maybe social life, however, whatever life. It could be telling lies to family members or the local community, and including posting photos on social media, like we mentioned earlier. It could also include stopping the victim from making friends, because when you make friends, that
Socially isolating the victim.
that's a form of isolation. And again, when you're isolated, of course, when you're isolated from people, you're isolated from information. You're isolated from another person that might ask you, oh, why are you behaving like this? Why are you doing this? You understand? Then if other people ask you questions, then you are bound to respond.
Absolutely.
And it could involve using immigration status to threaten the victim. That's a form of coercion. Say, okay, nobody knows. It's between you and I. We all know what you are, where you belong here. We know your status. So now the whole world is gonna say, I'm gonna make a report to the people who should know. Yes.
And it brings fidgeting and fear.
Oh sure. Oh
Is
sure.
that the purpose? To bring fear, to instill fear into the other
So
party.
to instill fear, to enforce, fear, to make the person feel inferior, make the person feel dependent, because when we're talking about coercion, controlling behaviors, that is what the deciding factor is the power dynamics. There's an element of
Of
power
pressure.
in being displayed from one person to the other. That is, yes, that power, yes, it's clear power dynamics. The feeling that this person has, control, has the ability, to do this thing that they are saying they will do, yes. So that in itself, it sends, the other party, the victim, into a psychological meltdown.
Hmm. Wow. So this is deep. So we can say then that with all this explanation,
Mm.
coercion is a very powerful weapon in the process of domestic abuse.
That is what it involves. That is the abuse that we're talking about.
Okay, now that we know what it is or what it involves, and we see elements of this even among youngsters, even young as they could be, manifesting, for example, bullying in schools. You see, the one who bullies in school, if not corrected, if not changed, has the tendency to grow up to be an abuser. How did this fellow get into bullying out. He probably has observed from home abusive parents or visited abusive uncle or auntie.
It's
On
a
the, yeah, go ahead.
is a learned behavior.
Aha, that's where I'm going to.
It is something that you learn, something that is around you, something that
Hmm.
you see, something that is being displayed, and
And you have picked up.
and is picked up. And for some, you see, the unfortunate thing is that for some people, it's a, that's the only thing that they know.
Hmm.
For example, a child or children growing up in an environment where abuse and violence is rife, that is everything that they've grown up to know. They haven't known anything different. So what would you expect? So we're talking of the impact of the environment on a child's development.
Hmm. So, based on this, we have some instances where we have young adults or teenagers who legally, in quote, are in relationship. And we see instances where such a young man, as we have just described now, growing into this pattern of behavior, not knowing anything more than being abusive, begins to control another teenager. Probably we're talking of like a 18, 19-year-old teen, male in a relationship with a 14, 15-year-old teen, and is so manipulative, so controlling, so commandeering, because he himself, in the first instance, is not as matured anyway. They were just probably playing around what it means to be in a relationship. And what they thought is love is not love. And then it ends up endangering the life of the other party because of this coercive, controlling behavior that we talk about. Actually, we've seen instances where this has actually been fatal, yet it is an intimate relationship. What do we say about this?
Yes, well, this is what is happening. It is we're seeing controlling and coercive behaviors in action. And it manifests in different ways. We started off with like school ground bullying, and it's like, that element of, and that is, and like I said, the main, the significant factor is the power dynamics. You understand? If
Yes,
a little child, well, not a little child, an 8-year-old, as early as when they start thinking that, oh, that thought of, having some element of power over the other, or making this person do what they want them to do. It's what they've seen happen around them. Is
somewhere.
yes, how they've
So
learned.
children learn more by what they see around them
Yes,
than what
because
they are told to do.
because you wonder how would a child as young as that think that way. You expect their thoughts to be very um, fresh, not contaminated,
Innocent, yeah.
innocent. Yeah, put it that way. Yeah. So, and as a child who behave, but of course, from what we are seeing, we're seeing their thoughts being tampered with by what is happening in their environment, because children learn whether it's positive or negative.
By
They
what
learn.
they see.
So they've learned, picked up something, and seen that, oh, it's working. It works, from the other person to the other. So they will try it out. They try it out. Siblings try it on other siblings, and I mean, and some, as they grow up, into teenage years, or maybe young adults, of course, from teenage years, that's what, they now, the power dynamics, they use it to carve out for a sense of control, space for themselves. And that is why some of them, they go into gangsterism.
Mm.
One or two, having power, and it's like, oh, then we can make them do what we
What they
want
would
to do,
otherwise not have wanted to do.
what they otherwise would not have wanted to do. And to them, some of them, it's like they see it as they start off with it as if it's fun, it's
In
something to
fact,
laugh about.
they grade themselves. There's a
Oh,
level
sure.
of classification and then,
Exactly.
hierarchical structure in such a move, so to say. So this is
Yeah.
where it actually starts.
Mm.
And the unfortunate partner, who is the younger, usually the teenage girl,
Mm.
could slip into depression, could slip into being suicidal, depending on the level of control, isn't it?
Oh yes, oh yes, because the number one, the of course there's a process. First, and again they have they know how they choose their subjects. You understand?
Yeah,
So again, maybe for some reasons, would have been the victim. They know how they choose their victims. Yes, the victim, could have been someone that, for some reasons, um, is isolated in a way, and
lonely.
or lonely, and they use that, as a way of drawing, attracting themselves to that
Attracting that
individual.
individual.
You understand? With the idea of, oh, this is someone that looks doesn't have friends, doesn't have company, so we want to be your friend. You understand? So initially, these are people that you can talk to. You can, oh, my
They are
friend.
for you, they're not against you.
Exactly. And from there, of course, and so can you see isolation? It starts off with that, and they is that is that principle, that factor of isolation, that they'll utilize more of it to bring the person closer, away from other people, before then they now start to deal,
But
the word deal.
that's the isolation that you mentioned, social isolation, isn't it? To
Yes,
withdraw them and make them even more vulnerable as
exactly.
they,
Make that.
yes, yes, and then they then take advantage of their vulnerability in that state of loneliness, and you know,
And
so,
that, yeah, and that is why you see it's always, once it starts, it never gets better.
hmm,
Because it's the factor that makes them, put them in that situation where they have been made vulnerable. That's what they will even use, to make them even more vulnerable, so that they can now, now they occupy the space of their hearts, the territory, and they've taken over. It takes, you don't just, there's a saying that when you don't go to a strong man's, uh, you don't want to go
house.
to a strong man's door, house, and you are not, you to yourself, you're
You're
not,
not harmed
well,
yourself.
you understand, you're not well packaged, so you must go, with the mind of, so after you got there, then if not, the strong man might take over you. So, but okay, now you gain the upper hand, then you bring, then now you even build, more, higher. You build it up. You understand? You build up. More, higher. The mountain, you build it even more higher, because now you want to secure, what you have taken over. You understand? And that is the idea. You want to secure. Then now, now it is
To
yours.
perpetually keep them in that state.
That territory is yours, that space is yours, and then, so that nobody else will come and take it over, because you remember how you took it over in the first place, how it became yours in the first place.
So this is where the element of control also comes in. You
Yes,
want to be in charge of that person's life, another person's life.
yes. and that is it. And unfortunately, and it's just like you rightly said, it just goes from one state to the other, from one level to the other, one level of until you know that until it's well built up and the territory has been taken over completely, and then anything can happen.
So just as I said, there are the instances where we find this whole process or lifestyle resulting in fatal incidences, either in early uh, intimate relationship or midlife kind of intimate relationship, and
Sure.
the perpetrator won't just stop. He's seen it or she's seen it as a lifestyle which he or she has gotten used to, embraced, and it's like a second nature. Now, if this is the situation, just to is it possible now to say that we should have a particular area of schools curriculum during the early years, even from when children as you could probably suggest the age or the ages when such curriculum could be taught in schools, making people to be friendly, to be gentle, to be considerate, to be loving, not to be controlling, and so on and so forth. What will you think? Is this something that can be new curriculum, or it's already part of civic studies? Because
Yeah.
there used to be what they call civics in those days. How to be a decent citizen of your own country
Sure.
or integrate into society and life, which I'm not sure there's time to teach these days. I'm not sure there's any such curriculum in schools these days. Should
Mm.
we be advocating for more of such? What do you think, man?
Yes, yes, you're very right, sir. Actually, we will expect, the expectation is that, this should be, it's like, it's, I mean, normal school curriculum, starting from early years. I mean, you expect that, the environment, everything that is taught in the environment, it incorporates, the element of love, you know, loving, caring for each other, for whoever your next door neighbor, whoever sits next to you, whoever sits in front of you, the people that you see, yes, that should be the normal thing. However, with obviously we've had incidents of bullying, in schools, and obviously the school curriculum, and again a form of monitoring. You understand, on the school grounds, where by teachers, sub teachers, they address any concerns that may come up, and or maybe when they identify some behaviors that is not very um, behaviors that can be concerning in some children, you understand, or in a child, and they observe it and they call the attention of the parents, you understand, or maybe the guardians. It's like saying, oh, we're seeing this, this person is exhibiting this type of behavior in the playground, to another child, then you question it, you quickly question it, and you query it and you deal with it, so that you be able to identify where it's coming from, what support is required, you understand. So in different ways, in different forms, um, um, of course, this is part of the school curriculum, because the school is where we learn. And not just learning books, reading and writing. It's also about learning how we behave in interpersonal relationships. How how people, how different um, child's personality develop. I mean, and it's this, you see this being exhibited, in the playground, in the classroom, relating to each other, even relating to the teachers, and all this is part of learning. It's part of, because we
Yes,
don't just go to school to read and write. There's a
absolutely.
that we learn. in education. Thank you, sir.
Well, this is interesting today. This is interesting. So, coercion, manipulation, control are words that we can easily identify and associate with um, abusive behaviors. And it's possible for people to grow into them by mere observation. And then it becomes a pattern of their lives, which is not good. It's a cycle that has to be consciously broken, and this can start. Efforts to do this can begin from the early years. Ever so grateful, ma'am, Miss Richard, for joining us always on this show. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for coming, ma'am. Have a nice day, ma'am. Everyone listening to us live, this is where we draw a curtain to today's show. Manipulation, coercion, controlling behavior is not the best. Domestic abuse, seek help. Could anyone be in this form or this kind of a relationship, or this is what you're going through? Shout out 101-999, any one of these numbers. Speak to your GP, speak to your, you know, ring any of those numbers and see how you can obtain help. So this is where we draw a curtain to today's show. Domestic abuse, seek help. Seek help. Till we come again your way next time, please do enjoy the rest of your day and please have a good afternoon.